We also have another representative of the NDLEA, Giba Jibril. Please, can we give him a hand? We have a representative of the NIS, Queen Okudo. Please, can we give her a hand? We have also with the NSCDC, Esther Omoreba. Please, can we give her a hand? We have also with the NSCDC, OCB Ido. Please, can we give her a hand? We have a member of the Buratai board, NN Adami. Please, can we give them a hand, please? We have a member of the Nigerian Police Force here with us, CSP Opato Yobo John. Please, can we give him a hand, please? We also have ASP Barka Dali Vava. Please, can we give her a hand, please? We have also with us Lieutenant P.O. Ugidefa. Please, can we give him a hand as well? At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen,
As I welcome all of you to this program, let me specially welcome and thank Major General Ibrahim Manu Yusuf, retired officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for accepting to deliver this year's lecture. I recalled and I recounted during the courtesy call that the notice was short, the dates were changed severally, but in humility, he affirmed his presence today. Another round of applause for you, sir. And given your pedigree and rich seat of experience, both in theory and in practice, in defense and security affairs, I have no doubt at all that you will do justice to the theme of today's lecture. Let me again, for records and emphasis, recognize the representative of General T.Y. Buratai, retired, who is here in our midst, and a member of the board, Alaji M.M. Adamu. You are welcome. Please. I would say that the Buratai Center is a boarding outfit endowed to this university by the Nigerian Army under the then Chief of Army Staff, General Dr. T.Y. Buratai, in consummation of a long-standing partnership between our institution and the Nigerian Army. Established in 2019, the Buratai Center for Contemporary Security Affairs was conceived Hence, the this practicable solutions to therefore, that is to profess strategic national security. It is my hope, therefore, that the outcome will contribute to the policy formulation that the Center for Contemporary Security Affairs of Millennium University is poised to attacking head-on these problems that are facing this country. And if you believe in me, say, I do. Thank you for listening.
A better round of applause. Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize the presence of ACI Chris Dodo, representing the State Controller, Nigerian Immigration Service, Edo State Command. Please, can we give him a hand? On silence and pay keen attention as the guest speaker takes on the microphone for his lecture. At this point, permit me to invite the citation. Thank you.
To read the citation of Major General Ibrahim Manu Yusuf, retired officer, or better still, holder of the Order of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, OFL, GSSS, FCM, etc., the guest speaker on the occasion of the public lecture on Buratai, or Buratai Center of Excellence Grenadier University, holding today, the 19th day of February, 2025. Mr. Chairman, sir, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Thomas Fuller, the most legendary mathematician, he said, an invisible determination can accomplish almost everything. And in this lies the great distinction between great men and little men. I can tell you boldly, Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that Major General Yusuf, retired for short, but not tired, has an invisible determination which has led to his great fortune and achievement as a Major General. Major General Ibrahim Manu Yusuf, retired, was born on the 19th day of May 1967 and commissioned into the Nigerian Army Armored Corps. On completion of his cadet training in 1990, since then, he has had an unblemished career which has spanned 33 years of service in various capacities, including instructions, staff, and command. Let's applaud him, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as a young officer, he served a 3-year duty tour in ECOMO between 1993 and 1996, after which he was an instructor in the Nigerian Defense Academy and the Nigeria Army Armored Corps Center and School. He also served as directing staff at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, as well as National Defense College. And was course director at Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center, Accra, Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Major General Ibrahim Manu Yusuf, as his staff, he had a number of key appointments, which include Registrar of the Nigerian Defense Academy, Deputy Director of Force Generation, Director of Campaign Planning, and Chief of Operations at the Army Headquarters Department of Operations, and Executive Director at the Nigeria Army Resource Center. During his tenure as Director Campaign Planning, he was able to successfully articulate the campaign plan for Operation Lafia Do. He also involved the blueprints for the identification of Boko Haram terrorists, remember, by creating a poster of Boko Haram terrorists wanted list, which is still being used by the Nigerian Army till date. He also served as the Chief of Operations of the Nigerian Army. He deserves your applause, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, sir, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Alfred Montepart, he said, your life will be no better than the plan you make and the action you take. You are the architect and builder of your own life for time and destiny. In line with this word he's saying, General Yusuf had a solid command footprint. Prominent among his command appointments were his command of 21 Armored Brigade Manduguri during Operation Zema Lafia from 2013 to 2014, within which his brigade was responsible for the security of Manduguri, the Sambisa Forest. You must bow your head to a man who actually supervised Sambisa Forest. And indeed, the whole of Southern Borno State. During this period, he earned a commendation for gallantry in the numerous operations carried out by his brigade. He also served as the general officer commanding 7th Division, where he again earned a letter of commendation for gallantry of his division during Operation Deep Punch 2. Maybe perhaps in the lecture will tell us what that means. It was also to his credit that over 3,000 of his troops that took part in the Sabisa offensive were promoted by the Chief of Army Staff, while he was awarded the Nigeria Army Outstanding Operation Command Medal.
when you were singing the national anthem. You know, and my mouth, you know why? You don't know. Okay. So in the 70s, when we were in school, we learned this anthem. Then later it changed. So I was not sure of the exact wordings. And as a military man, the way when anthem is being played, you have the option of singing or remaining still. So I stood still because I couldn't read the screen over there. So during the course of my lecture, I think there are 3 people there. I can only see the screen from here. The gentleman in yellow, the person to read any script. The Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, our esteemed professors and intelligence agencies here, my friend, General Akintade, who accompanied me here for this lecture, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Lawrence Ikechukwu, for inviting me to come and deliver this lecture. It is an honor. There are many people that could have been invited, but he asked me to come. So I hope at the end I'll be able to justify the confidence that he has. I would like to also commend Professor Olufemi, the director of the Buratai Center, for the wonderful job that the center has been doing over the years. And that's what makes this university very unique, at least in the fields of security studies, because the center tries to bridge the theory practice gap. I'm not an academic. Whatever they tell you, I'm a soldier. So coming here to speak to you will give you some perspectives that you may not find in the literature. I know as students, sometimes when they bring you up here, some of you are in law, some medical, and you even ask, why are they bringing us? It's a waste of time. I can assure you that by the end of this lecture, you will have a different perspective. The learning process is all entirely to your field of study. If you don't see it now, you will see other aspects that will help you to better understand what is going on in the country and the world at large. I'll be speaking from the perspective of a practitioner with over 33 years in the military, and I've spent that I, a soldier, whose task it is to use hard power, my constitutional mandate. Why? Because we have seen that hard power alone cannot work. Unfortunately, our policy and decision makers, including some in the military, intelligence, and paramilitary, do not seem to recognize this. But what I want to make clear is that as soldiers, sometimes you hear, when we kill to save lives. We kill to protect. But we've discovered that that aspect alone, without complementing it with the soft power, is a waste of time. Let me give you a short story. Some years back, in the 70s, there was a riot, hundreds of women. It's not the About Women's riot. This was in the 70s. And they had to dispatch soldiers because the police said the number was overwhelming. And this commander who led the soldiers, when he saw the women, the soldiers were all armed. He didn't know what to do. So he turned, looked at the soldiers. He said, I'm going to give you some orders I've never given you, but you must just obey the orders. Then he said, drop your rifles. So all the soldiers dropped their rifles. The women were watching. He said, drop your cap. They dropped their caps. He said, remove your shirts. They said, they removed their shirts. The next order was, remove your belt. They removed their belt. The next order was, remove your trousers. As soon as they began to remove their trousers, the women took off. So the soldiers didn't have to shoot, but they accomplished their objectives. So that is just on a lighter note. You say sometimes you can prevent conflict. Sometimes you don't have to use lethal means to resolve conflicts. Now, slide. By way of introduction, I will begin by stating the obvious, that the world today is under siege, under the siege of non-state actors that are operating as terrorists, militants, bandits, as well as criminal armed groups all across the world. In Asia, you know what is happening in Myanmar with the Rohingyas. You know what is happening in Pakistan. You know what is happening in India. In America, of course, you are familiar with the 911 and the ripple effects of terrorist sleeper cells in some parts of Europe. That is all very clear to us. We are also aware of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, where even proxies are being used. And we know the Israel-Palestine issue. We know when Hamas attacked Israel, and Israel waged a war on the Gaza. Since how many years? 1 year plus. Have they achieved their aim? No. What has happened? Over 45,000 Palestinians killed. Over 1,700 Israelis killed. Yet, after all this, is now they are coming to the table to do what they ought to have done before. It's now that they are exchanging prisoners of war. Slide. This was Gaza, or this is Gaza. You saw the destruction. Next slide. Next slide. Now, after all this destruction, they are doing the exchange. Slide. Look at the Hamas with their supporters, with their sympathizers, despite all the war. Next slide. The same Hamas. I hope you know that Israeli Defense Force is one of the best in the entire world. Right? But they could not achieve their objectives in the Gaza. Look at, with all the destruction, this will give you an understanding of what is happening in other parts of Africa and Nigeria. Slide. And this is where this quote by Sun Tzu is very apt. To fight and conquer in all our battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without the fight. But make no mistake, nobody is saying that the non-kinetic will not work or will work without kinetic. No. We have to apply the hard power. We have to hit the enemy hard in order to compel the enemy to appreciate the non-kinetic effort. So they are complementary. Slide. Before coming to Nigeria, we know what is happening in Africa, other parts of Africa, the Sahel region, Lake Chad Basin region, where ISWAP has been holding sway. And this has led countries like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso to even ask the French to leave because they felt the French government was complicit in their affairs. Coming back to us in Nigeria, in all the geopolitical zones of the country, there are conflicts going on in which the military is involved, the military, police, and other security agencies. What you see on the screen is just for you to try to appreciate. But it's not to say that in the Northeast it's only insurgency and terrorism. There is banditry, there is kidnapping. So is multiplicity of threats in virtually all the geopolitical zones of the country. I think maybe Southwest, not so much. Next slide. Our own Professor Nwolise had this to say in line with what Sun Tzu said. He said, with the benefit of hindsight, this was 2019. How much will it have cost the nation to pay compensation and rebuild few mosques demanded by the Islamic sect, that's Boko Haram, compared to the enormous resources that has been lost fighting terrorism, insurgency? Why was it so difficult? That's his perspective. In other words, he is also talking about the need for non-kinetic options. Slide. Now, sometimes when you are talking about a balance, and the Vice Chancellor alluded to this, the balance between non-kinetic and kinetic, because kinetic will make the enemy, the adversary, to appreciate the non-kinetic, the soft power. So the question is, what constitutes the optimum level? What level of non-kinetic should you apply? And who determines it? Is it from the lens of the military or from the lens of the government? What balance of kinetic and non-kinetic measures should the army be applying in each conflict? You know, each conflict is peculiar. The insurgency terrorism in the Northeast is different from militancy in other parts of the country. They are not the same. Now, what form of non-kinetic measures should the government be applying? So these are questions that this presentation will seek to address. So this brings me to the aim slide. The aim, okay, before the aim, to just give you scope that I will not be talking about peace support operations. Nigerian military takes part in peace support operations. So my discussion will focus mainly on Northeast as case study, because that's where I operated. But I can assure you that the lessons from that will be applicable in other parts of the country. Again, the non-kinetic aspects, even though my focus is on the military, but I will talk about the non-kinetic aspects at the strategic level. So we are talking of what the government should do, because essentially non-kinetic aspects, the big aspects of non-kinetic operations is supposed to be executed by government. So this brings me to the aim, which is to discuss optimizing non-kinetic efforts in Nigerian Army's approach to military operations. And my scope is as outlined on the screen. Sometimes I will move a bit fast so that I can go to the important areas. Slide. Normally, in academic parlance, I will be conceptualizing these concepts, and it's contained in the paper. I brought some hard copies, and the soft copy will be available to you. So these are concepts I will briefly talk about. Slide. So insurgency, why am I talking about insurgency? Most of the threats confronting us in Nigeria are insurgency-based. So, and the aim of all insurgents is to undermine the government, So if you know that the aim of bandits, the aim of terrorists is to undermine the government, then you should know that military alone cannot deal with it. Slide. And conceptually, this is the definition of counterinsurgency. Look at what it says. All military, paramilitary, political, economic, psychological, and civic actions or activities undertaken by the government to defeat insurgency. What does this mean from conceptual point of view? You can't be doing only military and paramilitary and expect that you deal with insurgency. Completely impossible. In a study of over 30 insurgencies across the world, it was found out that those countries that succeeded in dealing with them had to apply the non-kinetic. They went with the kinetic, thinking they will get there. It didn't work until when they retraced their steps and began to optimize the non-kinetic to support kinetic before they got to the desired destination. Terrorism, I know no generally accepted definition. I provided this by the UN. Next slide. I want you to understand the goal of terrorism is to boost the morale of their supporters. You see, when you see bandits or you see terrorists, insurgents, they do something and post on TikTok. One of the aim is to increase their followership, to convince the population that they are succeeding in what they are doing so that more people will join them. And they demoralize the citizens. They make us to live in fear. And because we are in fear, we overreact. When we overreact, it helps them in coining the narratives against us. They attack you using the tactic of terrorism. You overreacted. In the course of it, you kill civilians. The same bandits, terrorists, militants, whatever they call themselves, will now be exposing that, look, this is how you kill innocent civilians. And the entire country turn against the military and paramilitary. This is exactly what is happening. Slide. Counterterrorism. This definition by Professor Nwolise. He said, all measures mobilized by the state. All measures mobilized by the state. So all measures cannot be military alone. It has to be all elements of national power. Next slide. So looking at kinetic, non-kinetic, by now this will have been very clear to you. Kinetic is the hard power, lethal force, while non-kinetic is anything that is not kinetic. Right? Slide. Now, dimensions of non-kinetic. What when we say non-kinetic, in what form? It could be psychological operations, where you try to influence the cognitive domain of your audience And I have some video that I will show you of psychological operations that we use in the Northeast. Then civil military cooperation through quick impact projects. We also have economic warfare, cyber warfare, and all that. But in this presentation, we are not focusing on those electronic aspects of kinetic operation. Slide. So what does non-kinetic do? It creates unique uncertainties prior to and or outside the traditional warfare because they induce ambiguities. And it is politically difficult for you to militarily respond to non-kinetic action. So if, for example, the insurgents that will make you, how do you respond to that? Through kinetic means. Next slide. Now, I will give you some examples of non-kinetic approach that was used by the federal government in the Northeast. Just briefly. The first was Operation Sulhu. So in this operation is being led by the Department of State Services. So in this operation, they offered amnesty to top Boko Haram members with the understanding that they would drop their arms and they will bring other top-ranking members. So as at the end of 2023, 150 top high-ranking Boko Haram members surrendered through this. Then we have the Operation Safe Corridor. Again, under the auspices of preventing and countering violent extremism, which is part of the National Counterterrorism Strategy. You surrender, drop your arm, you go through a disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration program, and then they relocate you back to your community. We have 2,016 that have surrendered as at the end of 2023. Now, the Borno State government, Governor Zulum, introduced this dialogue initiative and decided to engage with the Boko Haram. And through this process, over 200,000 insurgents and their family members have surrendered. Now, let me tell you, in 10 years of fighting Boko Haram, we cannot kill 200,000. You can't. No, I mean, look at Gaza, you cannot. And sometimes some people who call themselves military experts, they will ask you some questions. How come we've been fighting, hitting, you say you kill this, how come they are still alive? The answer is not far-fetched. Success in counterinsurgency operation, such as the one confronting us, banditry. Success is not measured by the number of human beings you kill. Success is measured by the number that are surrendering to you and a decline in the recruitment base. Why? Most of them are working based on ideologies. So if you have members of militant group, bandits, whatever you call them, if you have them deserting, leaving the group, and others are not joining them, then you will get there. But as you are killing them, others are joining. I go back to Gaza. Let me ask you, if you grew up in that environment, you saw how your family house was destroyed, notwithstanding the fact the Hamas were the one that attacked Israel, and Israel has the right to attack. That is true. But if you grew up in that environment and you saw all your family wiped out, what will happen to you? You will join Hamas. And that is what is happening. They killed 45,000. But I can assure you the number that will be joining Hamas will more than double the 45,000. Next slide. So military operations by definition Military operation encompass a broad range of activities carried out by the armed forces of a country or as part of a coalition or multinational force to achieve national security goals or interests, or any mandate that may be assigned to them under the multilateral framework of whether UN or African Union. And basically speaking, military operations are divided into three broad categories. Offensive operations, when we go out to attack the enemy or the adversary. Or defensive, when we are protecting a community, we are protecting a locality. Or stability, you are no longer doing offensive, but you are stabilizing an area that was under conflict, but now some level of peace has been achieved. You are maintaining checkpoints and so on. Next slide. Now, we'll look at Nigerian Army's approach to military operations. You know, before we talk about optimizing the non-kinetic, we need to look at what has been our approach. The approach of the Nigerian military to operation is same with virtually all the militaries in the world, which is the traditional war fighting, as was the case during World War I, World War II. The same way we fought civil war, Nigerian civil war. The same way we fought against Chad in the 1980s. The same way we fought Cameroon. The same way we dealt with Maitasine. The same way we are dealing with insurgency, banditry, militancy. It's that same kinetic. You maneuver, use firepower, and kill the enemy. Slide. So at the moment, there are over 13 major operations going on, being executed by the Nigerian Army in all the geopolitical zones of the country. What you see on the screen, they are the code name of the operation. They are the code names of the operation. Recall the other slide where we showed you all the threats in the geopolitical zone. So these operations are designed to deal with those threats. You will see the details in the lecture notes that you have. Now, in all these operations, the Nigerian military is using mainly kinetic, hard power. The elements of non-kinetic is not adequate to yield the desired outcome. Slide. So, why do we optimize? Why should we optimize non-kinetic? The answer is because the threat confronting us has been conceptualized as war amongst the people. War amongst the people. The belligerents, enemy, adversary, whatever we call them, they are fellow citizens. They do not wear uniform. And it's not written on their head that they are militant. Sometimes you say, how come these people kill soldiers? They came in civilian vehicle, wearing civilian clothes, as if they are passing you, they just turn and fire you. It's war amongst the people. Their targets are civilians, civilian infrastructure, and symbols of state power. The military, police, DSS, they are symbols of state power, and that is their target. What is their goal? Gain control over the thinking and behavior of the people. And they try to discredit the military, paramilitary. They try to discredit us. Now, neither law enforcement nor the armed forces can deal with this decisively. Success will depend on the application of whole of government, whole of society, the application of both kinetic and non-kinetic aspects collectively for us to deal with these threats. But the problem is that we don't seem to realize it. So what happens? People will criticize police, criticize army, and the militants, insurgents, bandits, they are happy. They will even create conditions that will make you to criticize the military and other security. Because when there is that disharmony between the people, the military, and the government, they will achieve their aim. Slide. Now, the real causes of conflicts cannot be resolved through kinetic means. Sit down, do a conflict analysis, any conflict in this country. Check, what are the root causes? Are you aware that in the multinational, in the Lake Chad Basin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, the areas affected by these conflicts in all our countries, including Nigeria, that the areas with the highest level of poverty, highest level of illiteracy. What am I trying to say? There is governance deficit. In some other areas, it's an issue of marginalization. Most of them, something happens and you begin to send the military and other security agencies, but you are not addressing the root causes of the problem. So kinetic measure cannot achieve that. Kinetic measures tend to escalate the conflicts. What you are supposed to do, you didn't do. The people were rioting, then you send the army. In the course of quelling the riot, they kill 2-3 people. Conflict escalates. Some will be joining because of the 2-3 people that were killed. It escalates. And then once you introduce violence, the chances to ending it becomes very, very difficult. I really wish that our policymakers, decision makers, understand the kind of conflict we are fighting. Sometimes some governors have told me, go, we'll give you everything you require. It's not everything I require that will solve it. Where we are stabilizing, improve the infrastructure. As we stabilize this area, improve the infrastructure. Now, I decided to put these 2 quotations from the American experience in Vietnam, that the cost of bringing a communist defector under the amnesty program averaged out less than $350, with a total of 176,000 such turncoats. The cost of killing an enemy combatant with firepower, by contrast, average out $60,000. Like some people don't know, you know, the Nigerian military, they have drone. The missile that drone is carrying, $50,000. So you see insurgent terrorists in a vehicle, to take them out using that drone, $50,000. One. So it's really very expensive. Any operation the military carries out, and you hear that we killed 20 to 30 terrorists, that is a hugely successful operation. You know why? When they are overpowered, they avoid contact. When they see you are overpowering them, they are losing it, they run away. And they exploit our weaknesses. Slide. Okay, now I go to the next scope item. Looking at the case study of Indian Army. I actually, in the paper, I looked at both the US military and the Indian Army. Now, in this case, you know, India is being faced with a kind of insurgency in the Jammu and Kashmir region. So what they did there is on the aspect of civil-military cooperation, specifically boosting the Army's capacity to execute quick impact projects. So the government empowered the Indian Army with resources to execute quick impact project based on the needs of the community. And why? Because as the army is doing it, it helps to win the hearts and minds of the people in the area. So for the military, no military goes to dialogue with Boko Haram. Why should I go and dialogue with Boko Haram? Why should I dialogue with a military? It's not my job. I'm not supposed to dialogue with them. I will never dialogue with them. It's somebody else's job to do the dialogue. But that person, this is the mistake in the country. The person who goes to dialogue with them must be in sync with the military. Because sometimes before you go to negotiate, before you go to dialogue, you must have broken the limb of your enemy or your adversary. So he's in a weaker position to negotiate. You understand? If you look at what's happening in Gaza, there was a point that if Israel had stopped when everybody was saying, stop, 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 and negotiate, if Israel has stopped at that in power. So for the Indian military, they had these resources. Look at for 2000, 2001, they contributed 353 million to the local economy. They built 13 goodwill schools, empowerment centers, medical complexes. Why? Why is it that they give to the military, not to the government? Because the military is right there, and they want the people to see that the military they are the good guys helping them. And what happened when they began to execute these projects? Not only did they win the hearts and minds of the people in Kashmir and Jammu regions, but the people began to give them information where the insurgents were hiding. Unsolicited information. You know, kindness has a way of attracting some things. Slide. Okay, so now coming back to Nigeria, let's look at why did I use Operation Lafia Dole? So I used this period because this was when I was general officer commanding 7th Division of the Nigerian Army. And I had the responsibility of clearing the entire Sambisa forest. And like the orator said, I should tell you about Operation Deep Punch 2. So that Operation Deep Punch 2, under the auspices of Lafia Dole, was the largest offensive operation into Sambisa. And in this operation, we cleared everywhere, every inch in Sambisa where Boko Haram were hiding. Now, sometimes because you hear many things, this is not like claim, because we had what we call eyes in the sky. So they are verifiable. It's there. You can view it. It's there. Now, during this operation, yes, as I'm doing the kinetic, you see, that's where the importance of theory comes to play. So our generation, we are not just soldiers of, no, we've read the theory. I read history in NDA. I undertook a course in theory and practice of guerrilla warfare. So if you are planning the operation, you must look at the principles of counterinsurgency, principles of guerrilla warfare. You will know that you can never succeed if you don't integrate non-kinetic. But the challenge was that the army, my division, we did not have the expertise. We didn't. The army doesn't have the expertise to do that. What did I do? I went to University of Maiduguri. This is where the academia, very important. I met the vice chancellor and I told him, my task here is to break Boko Haram, and I'm going to break them. But I cannot succeed without your support. I want to collaborate with your psychologist, with your sociologist, with your linguist, because they are predominantly Kanuri. There are people, professors of Kanuri language. I want to cooperate with your communication experts. And he said to me that this is why they are there. There and then he called some of the professors and they volunteered. They said, General, I said, I don't have money. They say, you don't need to give us anything. We are ready. So we formed a small cell, found a guest house in town, and these professors, they come there. I had my intelligence officer and my public relation officer. So they meet there. What do? When we conduct operations, we capture Boko Haram. Some surrender to us. Some, they take advantage when they go to conduct operation. They take advantage, they pretend they are wounded so that we capture them because they don't want to be there. There are those that have grudges with the organization. There are those, and this is what many people don't understand. There are many people in those groups that they themselves are victims. They were captured from their house and forcibly recruited to become terrorists. And the person that captured them is from the same village. And they tell you, if you run away, we'll go and kill your mom, your dad. And it has been happening. So, victims turn perpetrators. So when we now get these people, we take them to this cell. Remember the composition. They will interview them, and then they produce documentary, and we air. Now, when we air it, for us to air it, we pay money. I want to air it, I pay money. You air it once. The military is not resourced to do that. Why are we airing it? You will see why. Next slide. So, in this operation, Lafia Dole, our main effort is the kinetic, while our secondary effort is the non-kinetic. Galula, in talking about what ratio, he advocated 80% non-kinetic, 20% kinetic. The Nigerian Army, I think 2 years ago, a year or so ago, they said we are doing 25% kinetic, 75% non-kinetic, but that's not true. The truth of the matter is we are doing nothing less than 95% kinetic. That's the truth, right? So, I am here to talk about this CIMIC, the psychological operations. I'll talk about human rights and international humanitarian law so that you understand that it is in the interest of the military to uphold human rights and international humanitarian law. Because when we violate them, we are putting the population against us. And in this war, the population, the civilians, are the center of gravity. So any commander that allows his troops to violate human rights, international humanitarian law, that is the surest way to failure. The people can never be with you. Next slide. So this has always been my principle, that you can't win the hearts and minds of those you can protect. So rule number one, before the military can win hearts and minds, you must have the capacity to protect the people. If you can't protect them, you cannot win the hearts and minds. And that is part of the reason why we do the kinetic. So any commander in any location, whether you are police, you are whatever, once you put the focus of your people to protecting the population, the community, they know you may not be enough to do it. But when they see that you are not leaving any stone unturned in protecting them, they will be with you. Even when you are unable to do because they overrun you, they see the effort that you put in. They know that you are not able to protect them at that time because the powers that came was much more than what you had. Slide. Look at this point number 9 for the Vietnamese fighter. It says, in contact with the people, follow these 3 recommendations. Respect the people, help the people, defend the people. So if the military doesn't do this, then you cannot win the hearts and minds. So this respect for human rights, international humanitarian law was uppermost. Now, whatever you do, soldiers, some will violate. So the question is, what did you do? Now, between 2018 and 2020, cases of human rights violation, violation of international humanitarian law that came to the military, to my division, there was a court martial that was set up, found guilty, imprisoned. So the military, Nigerian military will not, like, you have evidence against someone violating and you think they will just throw it away. The person violated. What did the military do? That is key. Next slide. So this was the psychological operation cell. You can see their composition and their main task, articulate and disseminate appropriate themes and messages which will encourage the surrender and desertion of Boko Haram members. Counter BHT narrative. Slide. Next slide. This is the slide I will take out, for example, because the faces of those who supported us is there. Can you play this clip? Play this clip. This is a young girl that was taken by her father and taken by her father. It's in Hausa, so just read the slide, and handed over to commit suicide bomb, suicide mission. Just try to read it because it's in Hausa. Reduce the volume. Reduce the volume. Okay, so her father took her, handed her over to go and do suicide bombing. The previous year, he had taken her elder sister for the same thing. And you know, nobody will believe this. And when he sent her, I hope you are playing it. I'm just giving the narrative as it's being played. When he sent her, 3 of them, this girl was one of the 3. They were told, he's around Konduga. He took them on a motorcycle from Sambisa to the outskirts. They stopped there around 4 a.m. Then their handler now said, around 4:35, they begin to call prayer. That people, they will see torchlights, people moving to the mosque. They should then begin to move towards them. When they get close to the mosque, they wait. When they call the last prayer and the people start praying, these 3 girls will now enter the mosque and detonate themselves. As they were going, they got close. This girl said she doesn't think it's the right thing to do. She tried to convince the other 2 not to do it. The other 2 insisted. So she began to retrace her step. When the other 2, one of the 2 found out that she was trying to evade it, that one detonated. So the 2 of them blew up. This girl was not affected. So she moved, sat under the tree, took off the vest. By morning, our soldiers had to go to the area because they had explosion. And they found this young girl there. She couldn't speak Hausa. So we took her, handed her over to this team. Luckily for us, there is a female in this team, a lecturer. So she was more at ease with this. So she opened up. And then we did this documentary. Why it is in Hausa? Because the bulk of the people there is our target audience is Hausa. And then we went to camps, IDP camps. IDP camps, we put and we're airing it. Why? Because at that time, we were having so many young girls being used for suicide bombing. You know, soldiers were men. So they just armed these young girls. You can't say you are searching her when she's entering market and she will blow up. So we began to sensitize. When this was aired, okay, I can't say it. But somebody called me, said, no, it's not true. This is fictitious. I said, I know you will say this. That's why I didn't hide the girl's face. You know, the media will say hide. I said, that's why we didn't hide it. Because we want the people to know that this is exactly what is happening. So mothers, watch out. Because it's the fathers that take these young girls to. So the aim was to sensitize for people to know this is the evil going on. But after paying, next one this is something you should be airing continuously. But I have to pay. No commander is resourced to do this job. The professors that volunteer their service, just once in a while we say take, and they were happy to do it. So that is why to counter this extremist narration, it's not, we don't have the skill. It's a whole government that should be doing that on a massive scale. Next slide. You see, that's the girl. I even got the international media. I tried to see how I could turn this girl into Malala, our own Malala, to try to say a girl like this, we should celebrate her, It didn't work. That is her in the other slide. Next slide. I wouldn't show that for long because I've adopted her. She's in school. That's her latest picture. And that she wants to become a doctor, right? I know it's the medical students that are clapping. So there are many like this. That is why when we say the non-kinetic aspects, and then who takes responsibility. Now, if you don't take responsibility for these vulnerable people, if you just drop her into the chunk of the majority, there again, she becomes vulnerable. The next aspect is the quick impact project. So we do medical support, borehole, educational support, road maintenance. In fact, General Buratai created 2 schools in Miringa, in Benishek, 2 army schools. So sometimes people don't understand. Why will army go and create schools there? They've burnt all the schools, and the government has not established any other school. So he built the army school, deployed army teachers and everybody there, so that the people in those communities will go to school. But while you are doing that, some other people are asking, why are you building the school there? Is it because you are from that state and so on? Is it the job of army to go and build the school when there is no school, when school is born? But when it is being done to win the hearts and minds of the people, other people give a different interpretation because they don't understand why it should be done. And when we are doing quick impact project is not that they give army, you give contract. No. If the quick impact project is to be done here in Okada, the army commander here will engage the community leaders. What are your priority areas of need? It is borehole here, there. You do needs assessment. You also ensure that the support you are providing does not cause another harm. Maybe you went and put the borehole in this area, predominantly one tribe. They say, okay, you've taken side. You put it in Orobo side. You didn't put it in this other side. It's complicated. But when you are doing it, you have to work with the locals. So it will be Okada people that will come and work there. In that community, if there is anybody supplying cement, he will be the one to supply the cement. If there is carpenter there, the person from the carpenter there is the person you will employ to execute the quick impact project. Ultimately, what is the aim? The aim is to bring the community together with the military. And that happens when you are executing the project. And at the end, they see. So when this is happening, anything that is going to hurt you, they will come and tell you. Next slide. Okay, play that clip. So this second clip, you will see is pictorial slideshow. You see, we were clearing farmlands. You see this road? This is the road from Maiduguri to Bama. We were patching it with cement. You know why? Boko Haram come to the pothole. They dig it further, put IED, explosive. When vehicle comes to pass, it explodes. Then we found out. As soon as we patch it, in the night, Boko Haram will come to the same spot that we patch, open it, put the bomb, seal it. Yes. So what did we do? We now mix paint. Different color. We create our own color of paint. We mix it. So when we finish putting the cement to cover the hole, we apply this color. In the morning, when we come and we see the color has been tampered with, we now know. And so in a lot of these areas, if that's why we are talking of governance deficit, if the road, I'm just telling you, when you say between Kaduna, Abuja, say they come and kidnap people. Let me tell you, if that road is clear, no pothole, dual carriage, who can come on the express way? People are driving, but they wait for you. Where the road is bad, they enter, they attack you. Now, even if you bring the entire army, how do they secure that road? For those that may not know, you see, Borno State, is like the whole of southwestern Nigeria, less Oyo State. Yeah, in terms of size, it's like the whole of southwest, less Oyo State. So sink all the army, all the police, all the DSS, immigration, everybody there. You cannot secure everywhere. I hope it's playing. Okay, so these are medical outreach. This was the time that Buratai was Chief of Army Staff. That was when I was GOC. These people we rescued from Camp Zero. We rescued them, fed them, escorted them out. You see, it's the military. Now, the military is not giving money to feed these people. I hope you know that. You as the commander, you are giving money only to feed yourself. But when you see the problems, you have to. Sometimes we collaborated with some individual philanthropic organizations to empower some of the families. Visit the schools, encourage them. Okay, I think you can go to the main presentation. Go to the main presentation. Okay, the next one is direct engagement with the community. Sometimes as commander, we have to go and meet the community members and talk to them directly. It's still part of psychological operations. Appeal to their conscience, why they should not support the adversary, why they should not support the terrorists and be with you. In this next clip, this was in Banki town. Banki is border town with Cameroon. Now, consistently, suicide bombers used to explode in the IDP camps. And we are the ones securing the camp. But you hear it. So I was angry. I said, let me go there and talk to them. So in this clip, you will see the engagement with the people in the IDP camp. Can you play that clip? So I was getting somebody who will interpret. Reduce the volume a little bit. My Hausa is not very good, but I have to speak to them, right? So I had to tell them that we came there to see them because of what is happening. And I went there with my counterpart, the Air Force commander. And I said to them, I'm from Yobe. The next Air Force commander is from Gombe. And that amongst the soldiers there are people from different parts of Nigeria that came to assist them. But that we cannot assist them if they don't give us information. That do they know amongst them there are traitors there? They say they do, but that they won't know them. So I said, is it we that will know the traitors among you, or you will find the traitors and tell us? Long and short story. At the end of this encounter, when I left the Northeast, right, we never had any suicide bombing in that town again. So what I'm saying is sometimes is this engagement, right? Ordinarily, somebody should be able to do this on behalf of the military. But when it is not happening, these are areas that should occur. You recall that there was one officer that was killed in the South, right? One Colonel Ali. Colonel Ali is one of the best fighters, commanders. One of the best that we had. He had fought Boko Haram in the Lake Chad, in Borno. They brought him to fight bandits in North Central, in Zamfara, Sokoto, everywhere before he was taken there. How was he killed? He went to do the same dialogue. He went to do dialogue with the community. Did you see me with rifle there? Did you see the soldiers with rifle there? You have to take the risk. Because if we carry rifle group, they too, so we have to show them you drop the rifle and whatever. My soldiers will say, sir, it's risky. Among them, there could be one suicide bomber. Do you have two lives? If it comes, it comes, right? So what I'm saying is that was how that officer died, because he went to engage with the community. Now, notwithstanding that, another commander should not come and say, these community people, we did it, they kill us. It's not everybody in the community. There are just few people. So if they understand that this is war amongst the people, go to my presentation. If they understand that this is war amongst the people, that you must engage the community, notwithstanding the fact that some people betray you in the community, you have no choice but to engage with them, then the approach will be different. And that is the main thrust of this lecture. Optimize the non-kinetic, right? So now to the last part of this presentation, challenges, which should not be a difficult thing, because as I went through, I'm sure you on your own began to identify where the issues, the challenges are. Poor understanding of the nature of threats. We don't know that it's war amongst the people and the implications. Slide. Look at this. You know, Clausewitz, he talked about Trinity of war. he talked about, so the Trinity, using the Catholic, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In this case, the people, government, and the armed forces. He said, in war, these three must be together. The government, the people, and the armed forces. The closer we get to resolving it. The farther away we walk, the problem continues. So what do we see? Something happened. Even some governors will come out and criticize military, criticize police. The people will criticize the military. The military will criticize the people. The military will criticize police. Police will criticize. Can it end? And the adversary, the enemy, whatever we call them, insurgents, militants, whatever, separatists, they know this, and they try to pitch us against the other. So, if you see that government, you see the arrow must defeat the ideology. How do you defeat the ideology? Strategic communication, preventing and countering violent extremism. It's government that should do that, right? You see, counterterrorism, armed forces. Counterterrorism is more kinetic. I want you to understand this. Terrorist is kinetic, but in insurgency, don't forget, terrorism is the tactic being used by insurgents to induce fear among us by unleashing violence. So military must do that. But in counterinsurgency, people are involved. So the military must work with the people. The military must win the hearts and mind of the people. You see the arrow from insurgents to the people. The insurgents too are trying to woo the population. If you know what is happening in these areas, they will enter the village. They say, no, we are not after you. We are not after you. We are not attacking you. It's the police, the army. Those people, they are the ones we are after. And the people feel happy, oh, it's not us. They are not touching us. That's what happened in the Northeast. And that's why in the Southeast, I used to tell some of my friends, I said, you have a genuine but the people that are hijacking it now, that some people are sympathizing with, that was the same thing in Northeast. Some people were sympathizing with Boko Haram in until they now discover that the entire Boko Haram has been taken over